In this video, I'll be showing you how I collaborate my images, and it is of two steps. I call the first one the preparation before retouch, and the second one the proper color grading. So without further ado, let us get started. What we should first do is to crop the image, and then we get into the rest of the show. And cropping the image, whatever you are cropping the image to is determined by where you plan to use the picture in. For instance, I'll be posting this picture on Instagram, so I would choose a 4:5 ratio for my cropping, and I will do that by going to the crop, and then once I selected the crop button, I right click, and I choose 4:5. Then I can drag to adjust whatever I want. I can also resize from any frame, any corner I like, to get the kind of image I want. So I will be using this, and when you are done with that, you get into the proper color grading. And this one is for Capture One. Of course, if you are not used to this interface, this is the Capture One interface, although I did some modifications. And this is my workspace which I have saved. This is it, but there are many other workspaces here, and I think I went from migration. I used migration, then adjusted it to this. Next step is to observe the colors in the image. Now this image is mostly on the green and orange side. I didn't say brown because if you look at the color editing panel, there is nothing like brown here. You have your red, you have orange, you have yellow, you have green, you have cyan, right? You have blue, you have magenta, and you have purple. So there is nothing like brown. Whatever is close to brown, or whatever that looks like brown, is between orange, red, and yellow. These colors, sometimes this, but rarely. As you can see, if I'm in the orange, if I'm going towards this way, I'll be going towards the yellow, and if I'm going towards this way, I'm going towards the red. And if you observe, it is the skin color that is changing, not even this place. And this area, the yellow, if I'm going towards this angle or this line, I'll be going towards the orange, and if I'm going towards this side, I'll be going towards the green. And if you observe the image, you can see that the background is looking a little bit more greenish, and it's looking a little bit more reddish. So if you are not sure of the colors in the image, you can go to your color editor, and this is the HSL, hue, saturation, and lightness. From here you can know what colors are in the image by adjusting the hue or the saturation. So wherever you find that effect happening, you know the color that is involved in it. So observe the colors, and then you start. Color grading is very easy in this case, and I'll be doing this in no time at all. So I've observed the colors, and I'm seeing green, yellow, red for her lips, and orange for her skin. Of course, there are some red, but that has been covered, and the eyes as well, but that's a little less detail to worry about. I will leave the white balance as short, and I'll go into the exposure. But before we get into this, look at the list of the things in my Capture One lineup. If you're using Lightroom and you're conversant with photo editing, you can as well copy these methods, but I'm not sure it will give you a satisfactory result, so please go and find Capture One. Since I discovered Capture One, I stopped using Lightroom. The learning curve is a bit tough, but once you've learned it, it's very easy and convenient. So I have my white balance, and of course this is in the adjust menu. If I spread this, you see is in the adjust menu. So I have my white balance. These are the important layers, I have exposure, I have high dynamic range where you get your highlights, shadows, white and black. I have my clarity, I have levels, I have curve, I also have the color editor, which where we get the HSL, the dehaze and color balance, and of course the sharpening. And I will not be touching all of these things in this color grading video, so I will leave my white balance the way it is as short, and I will jump exposure and go to the high dynamic range, and I'll take down my highlights and whites. This will make me kill off excess lights. Okay, highlights and whites should be taken down so I can kill off excess whites in the image. So this was before and this was after. Now you might not notice so much difference in this, and that's one thing with Capture One. It has subtle changes but very efficient in those changes. And another thing is because this image was shot with good highlighting, so there is nothing much to take down if there is no highlights. And then I get into my exposure, contrast and brightness. So I first take up the exposure because this image looks a bit dark for me. Can take it up to this point and increase the contrast so I can get that deep feeling. And if you don't really know how this works, these sliders or these options, if you don't know how they work, simply do this so you can go from left to right to see what it does. So I will take it up to this point. Please don't do it too much. And the brightness, I can decide to either keep it this way or bring it down, but I prefer it this way because I would like to see the details of the hair well. And the saturation, just a little, 5 for me is fine. And then I can go up to the shadows, and the shadows of course works on the shadows. So if you observe these areas that there are shadows, if I take the shadow slider up, it makes them brighter, and if I take it down, it makes them darker. It just works only on the shadows. I'll take it up to somewhere around here, and my blacks, I like taking my blacks down a bit so that the hair will not look so whitewashed. I don't know if that is the word. I like touching my clarity a little so that I get this um more sharp image. So I can take up the clarity up a little and the structure up a little. Again, if you don't really know what these things do this. So this is what my clarity does. It makes the image more clear, simple as that. So this is it at 0 and this is it at 100. So the image looks like more light, and thick light is shown on it. Kind of makes it a deeper contrast without changing the contrast. And here it looks soft, really soft, and you can see it takes out a lot of the blemishes as well. But I will still do frequency separation, though not in this video. And if you want to know how to do frequency separation, I have a full video on photo editing, and you can watch it right here after this video. So I'll keep this around here. I like keeping it within the range of 5 and 8. Subtle but really good. Same with the structure, within the range of 5 and 8. So I'll leave it here. I will take in the blacks. This area is the black, so I'll take it in a little while observing. I just want to work on the hair here. I want to see that those black areas pop, and I will take in the whites as well. So I'll take this in and in a little, and that's that for my levels. I'll go to the curves, and I like making my curves, taking up the highlight area and bringing down the shadow area. This increases the contrast I have in the image. You can also do whatever you want, and I think I prefer this for this image. So bring down the highlights a little and then take up the shadows. It kind of makes it a little bit neat. So let us get into Photoshop now and open Camera Raw with this image. By the way, before then, I will save it using the export. Make sure that you select the image you want to export. If you want to export many of them or all of them, you select all of them. So I want to export this one, so I'll go to export and I will start doing my export. Export saves the last setting you used, so it is loading it up and this is my export. I like the last setting I used. Location is the same as original and it creates a subfolder which is edit if there is no subfolder, but if there is a subfolder called edit already, it's just going to move it into that area. And then you, if there is an existing file, it adds suffix. Sometimes it overrides if you set it that way, or it skips. So by skipping, it will not save that image if the file name already exists. And if it overrides, it will delete the former image and replace it with this new one. If it adds suffix, two of them will exist. So that makes sense, right? And then naming will be image name, which is this as a sample, and that is what the naming will be in JPEG. And export recipe, I like leaving mine at full size, highest quality. And every other thing here, I set it to my taste. So my scale, I scale for the width and I give it a 2500 pixels, and the width is here. This is the height. As you can see, this is the height, this is the width. You can also say long edge, short edge, whatever. But long edge has to do with if the image is portrait, long edge will be this area. If the image is landscape, long edge will be this area. So it is different from width and height. Width is fixed, it is always here, and height is always here. Short edge, the same thing. This is my short edge, but for landscape images, the short edge will be around here. Does that make sense? And I can choose it to never upscale. But that's by the way. And adjustments, I will respect crop and so on. Most of these things are the way they are from when it's installed. And then I click on export one and it does the export. It's pretty fast, 10 seconds depending on the size of the image, and 3 2 1, it is done. And here we are now in Photoshop. This is the image. Let us assume that I'm done retouching. So my final image should be something like this. So I'll duplicate this one and you must convert it to smart objects. Please note, convert your image to smart object, because in case you want to change something in the color grade that you've already done from Camera Raw and you did not convert to smart objects, you won't be able to revert to the old one. It's going to open it as a new image in Capture One in Camera Raw, and it will have every setting in 0. What do I mean by that? Let us say I didn't convert this to Camera Raw and I click on Ctrl Shift A or go to filter and go to Camera Raw filter. When it opens and I change everything I want and save, or click on OK. Let's say I take the exposure up and I do this. I just let's just assume that I don't know what I am doing and I'm done with this, and I click on OK. What that does is it saves this image. If I want to go back to Camera Raw to correct my mistakes, it's not going to have those parameters I set up. As you can see, everything is in 0, so I will have to now struggle to bring it back again, which I could have just double clicked and reset. So please always convert to smart object before you get into Camera Raw. So take that again. I'll duplicate this, right click, convert to smart object, as simple as that. Then Ctrl Shift A, I will jump into my capture. I keep on saying Capture One. So we are in Camera Raw now, and this is where the color grading starts. This is going to be very simple. I will just click on Auto and the image is almost done. Then I can go ahead to set everything I want to set in the image. I will adjust the contrast to my taste. I think I like this better. You can take down the exposure a little bit. You can take this up, the highlights. Just play around and see what you can do with the final result. And most importantly, curves again. So I can decide, alright, I like this, and change it to whatever I want. My mouse just disappeared. So yeah, I can just change it to whatever I want, and then increase the sharpness. I love going way high in my sharpness, and when you see the pictures and you're like, ah, these pictures are very sharp. Yes, they are. But be careful when you're increasing the sharpness to not introduce a lot of noise to the image. So I can go ahead to do some noise reduction. As you can see, there is some difference, but don't do this too much so that the person doesn't look like a wax. So I like going between the range of 20 to 25, and I just most of the time stop at 25. And then I go down to the color mixer and the color grading. This is where all the magic happens. And you'd ask, why did I take all the time to do every other thing when I should have just jumped here? You might not like your result if you just jump here. So prepare your image well first. If you are cooking soup, you have to cut the vegetables before and prepare every other thing, the meat and all that, before you start putting any other ingredients. So the reds for the lips, I will take it a little bit high. Make sure not to overdo it because some of it spills on the skin. Look at this. As you can see, look at this area. Look at this area. Look at this area. So be careful not to overdo it. And you can make it darker so that it's going to be bigger. But as you can see, it is touching the skin more. So somewhere around here should be fine. And be careful not to touch the hue, please, in your color grading, except if you must. And there is a case where if you'd like to touch the hue, there is a case where it's good. But if you're not creating art, some kind of abstract, obscene art, don't touch this hue because the image might look bad. But well, I guess the artist is free to do whatever he pleases. Just understand how they work and you're good to go. Take down the saturation for the orange, because if I take it up, she will look quite. So take it down a little, bring down the highlights, the luminance, which is the lightness. Um, Photoshop, Adobe calls it luminance, and Capture One calls it lightness. It doesn't matter, it is still HSL. And if you wonder why my HSL is like this, my adjust setting is on color. If I choose it to HSL, it's going to look different. So all the reds for the hue, all the saturation for the hue, all the luminance for the hue. But I prefer working with color because I get to edit all the colors settings at the same time without having to toggle between saturation and luminance and hue every time. Then we get to yellow. There is nothing much I can do with the yellow. I can just, bring it down a little, make it a bit darker so that the image will have more focus on her. And then for the green, the creme de la creme, yeah, the one we've been talking about, as you can see, if I want this green to look this way and dark, this is how they do it. If you see some of those pictures that the trees and all that are looking quite dramatic, this is the way they do it, or shouty, this is the way they do it. I can also choose to change the color. I can make it more yellow or more blue. This is the way they do it. So if it is new to you, from today on you know how, but please be careful not to overdo these things. Then I'll get into color grading. Now I like seeing everything big. Instead of using this three-way, I can just go to the shadows. It opens up the shadows for me. I like going with the blue area for my shadows. You can as well increase or decrease the luminance to whichever way you want. But I'll keep it at 0 for now. I might change it later. The midtones I skip, I go to the highlights and take it around this area. So We are going this way for the highlights and this way for the shadows. Does that make sense? So kind of going opposite. And then for the midtones, of course, the midtones is just about those places that don't have the highlight and the shadows. I could just choose wherever I want them to go. So if I want more of it to tilt towards the shadows, I can choose it to go towards the blue. If I want it to tilt towards the highlight, I can choose it to go here. And it has a big result, a big effect it does to your image. So this is the midtones for it facing towards the shadow, and this is it for it facing towards the highlight settings. Now, I'm not saying that it is a must that here must be your highlights and here must be your shadows, but let's be realistic. Look at these colors. Which one is brighter? This. Which one is darker? This. So to make it easy for you, just go through this, or maybe not. Try knock out yourself, break a leg. How do they say that? Whatever. And then the global is just the general color. You want it this way. As you can see, it works on everything. Works on everything. And now someone is saying in his mind, "Ah, he should have done this for all of them. Now let us see how it works." Yes, I'm doing it now. See. So as you can see, I'm only seeing the effects on the shadows, the dark areas. So this is it. So this can actually make sense if you use mask to mask only the hair, but please let me get back to where I was, and I'm done with the color grading. The global, I will keep it around here. I think it's fine. So that is it for your color grading, and the image is done. This is the result. If you want to change anything, because it's in camera raw, it's a smart object, you can go to the camera raw, double click on this, and it's going to open the camera raw settings with your settings already in it, and you can adjust easily. Please mind you, double click on this area. If you press Ctrl Shift A or go to this area, it's going to open a new camera raw layer on top of this one, which everything, every setting, every slider will be reset to 0, and your image will still look like the one you previously edited. So yeah, so this is the before from capture one, and this is the after when I was done. So that is it for this video. If you really learned something and this video was helpful to you, please leave a like and subscribe if you've not subscribed, and share this video with other friends of yours who this might be important to. If you want to learn how to do your dodge and burn very fast, I have the video link over here, and you can also check out the frequency separation technique which I mentioned before. The links are in the description, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.